The Helios Anomaly, Part 3 of 3, a story by Carl Otto. Reeves straightened, the weight of command visible in the set of his shoulders. We need to regroup and assess our situation. Kowalski, get down here. We need to know the full extent of the damage to the Redemption. Captain Reeves stood at the center of what remained of their team, his face a mask of grim determination. The acrid smell of burnt circuitry and the metallic tang of blood hung heavy in the air, a stark reminder of the chaos they'd just survived. "All right, people," he began, his voice steady despite the turmoil evident in his eyes. "We've lost Foster, but we can't let that paralyze us. We need to get off this rock." He turned to Kowalski first. "Lena, I need you to start repairs on the Redemption immediately. Tara, assign your drones to assist Kowalski. The faster we get the ship operational, the better. Focus on life support and propulsion systems. We need to be ready to leave at a moment's notice." Kowalski nodded, her face set with determination. "I'm on it, Captain. We'll get her up and running." Reeves then turned to Ortiz, who was still visibly shaken from Foster's death and her encounter with the orb. "Dr. Ortiz, I need you to work with Tara's backup unit to analyze the energy emissions from the artifact, but," he emphasized, his tone growing stern, "you are to do so from the safety of the Redemption. Under no circumstances is anyone to approach that orb again. Is that clear?" Ortiz's head snapped up, her eyes flashing with a mix of frustration and defiance. "But Captain, we can't possibly get accurate readings from that distance. The data we've collected so far barely scratches the surface of what that artifact can do. If I could just get closer—" "Absolutely not," Reeves cut her off, his voice sharp. "We've already lost Foster. I won't risk losing anyone else to that thing. You'll work with what you have, Doctor. That's an order." Ortiz opened her mouth to argue further, but something in Reeves' expression made her think better of it. She nodded reluctantly, her jaw clenched tight. "Good," Reeves said, his tone softening slightly. "Tara, you'll assist Dr. Ortiz with the analysis. If anyone can make sense of this data, it's the two of you working together." With the orders given, the team dispersed to their tasks. Reeves watched them go, the weight of command heavy on his shoulders. He turned to Tara's primary unit, his voice low. "Tara, you're with me. We need to take care of Foster." The AI's optical sensors dimmed slightly, as if in recognition of the solemn task ahead. "Of course, Captain." Together, they made their way to where Foster's body lay. Reeves knelt beside his fallen friend, his hand hovering over Foster's face before gently closing the doctor's unseeing eyes. "I'm sorry, old friend," Reeves murmured. "You deserved better than this." With Tara's help, Reeves carefully lifted Foster's body. They carried him back to the Redemption in silence, the only sound the soft whir of Tara's servos and Reeves's labored breathing. As they placed Foster's body in the ship's medbay, Reeves found himself lost in memories. He stared at Foster's face, now peaceful in death. "You know, Tara," he said softly, "Foster and I go way back. Served together in the Separatist Wars." Tara's sensors focused on Reeves, detecting the subtle changes in his voice and posture that indicated emotional distress. "Would you like to talk about it, Captain? I've found that humans often find comfort in sharing memories of lost companions." Reeves smiled wryly. "Comfort, huh? I don't know about that, but maybe Foster deserves to have his story told." He leaned against the medbay wall, his eyes distant. "It was during the siege of New Athens. Our unit was pinned down taking heavy fire. Foster was just a field medic back then, fresh out of training. But damn, he was good." Reeves's voice took on a tone of admiration. "We had wounded everywhere, and Foster was darting between them, patching them up under a hail of pulse rifle fire. Not a signal of concern about his own safety. I'd never seen anything like it." He paused, swallowing hard. "Then I took a hit. Felt like my whole left side was on fire. I was sure I was done for, but there was Foster dragging me to cover, cursing me out the whole time for being careless." A chuckle escaped Reeves, tinged with sadness. "He saved my life that day, and a dozen others. After that, I made sure he was assigned to every mission I led. Told him he was the only doc I trusted to patch me up." Tara processed this information, correlating it with her data on human relationships. "It seems Dr. Foster was more than just a colleague to you, Captain." Reeves nodded, his voice rough. "He was a damn good friend. One of the best men I've ever known." He straightened up, composing himself. "And now I've led him to his death on this godforsaken rock." "Captain," Tara began, her voice modulated to convey sympathy. "Based on my analysis of the situation, there was no way to predict or prevent what happened to Dr. Foster. The fault doesn't lie with you or with your leadership." Reeves managed a small smile. "Thanks, Tara, I appreciate that. Even if I'm not sure I believe it." He took a deep breath, squaring his shoulders. "Come on, we've got work to do." Meanwhile, in the Redemption's engine room, Kowalski was elbow-deep in circuitry. The damage was even worse up close, and she muttered a steady stream of curses as she worked. "Tara," she called out to one of the drones, "I need a microfuser over here. This power coupling is shot to hell." As the drone brought her the tool, Kowalski found her mind wandering. She thought of Foster, of his dry wit and steady hands. He'd patched her up more times than she could count, always with that same exasperated fondness. "Damn it, Foster," she muttered, blinking back tears. "You weren't supposed to check out before me, old man." She threw herself back into her work with renewed vigor, channeling her grief into determination. The Redemption hummed around her, its systems slowly coming back online under her expert touch. In another part of the ship, Ortiz sat surrounded by holographic displays, her eyes darting between readouts of the artifact's energy emissions. Tara's backup unit stood nearby, its processors working in tandem with Ortiz's analytical mind. "This doesn't make any sense," Ortiz muttered, frustration evident in her voice. "These readings... It's as if the artifact is emitting energy in patterns that shouldn't be possible." "Perhaps our understanding is incomplete," Tara's backup suggested. "The artifact may operate on principles beyond our current scientific knowledge." Ortiz nodded absently, her mind racing. "But if we could just get closer, maybe we could—" She cut herself off, glancing guiltily at Tara's unit. The AI sensors focused on her. "Dr. Ortiz, I must remind you of Captain Reeves's orders. Approaching the artifact would be extremely dangerous." I know," Ortiz sighed. "It's just, we're missing so much. There's only so much we can learn from here." She fell silent, staring intently at the data streams. But in her mind, a plan was forming. She just needed to wait for the right moment. Hours passed, with each team member engrossed in their tasks. Reeves alternated between checking on Kowalski's progress and conferring with Tara about their dwindling options. It was Tara who first noticed something was amiss. Her primary unit was with Reeves when her systems flagged an anomaly. "Captain," she said, her voice urgent, "I've detected some concerning data in my latest analysis." Reeves turned to her, instantly alert. "What is it, Tara?" "The initial energy spike from the artifact. It appears to have caused minor alterations in the crew's DNA structure. Additionally, I'm detecting subtle changes in your brain chemistry." Reeves felt a chill run down his spine. "What kind of changes? Are we in danger?" "Unknown at this time, Captain," Tara replied. "The alterations are minor, but their full effects are impossible to predict without further data. However, this may explain the behavioral changes observed in the station's original crew." Reeves cursed under his breath. "All right, we need to—" He was cut off by another alert from Tara. Her optical sensors flickered rapidly as she processed new information. "Captain," she said, her voice tinged with what almost sounded like alarm. "I've detected movement in the station. Dr. Ortiz has left the Redemption. She appears to be heading towards the artifact." "Damn it," Reeves exploded. "I gave her a direct order." He was already moving, grabbing his weapon. "Tara, alert Kowalski. Tell her to lock down the ship. No one else leaves, understood?" "Understood, Captain," Tara confirmed. "Shall I accompany you?" Reeves nodded grimly. "Yes, let's go get our wayward scientist before that thing does God knows what to her." As they raced through the station's corridors, Reeves couldn't shake a feeling of dread. The artifact had already claimed the lives of the station's crew and Foster. He'd be damned if he'd let it take Ortiz, too. But as they approached the lab, a piercing scream cut through the air, followed by an otherworldly humming that seemed to vibrate through the very walls of the station. Reeves and Tara exchanged a look of alarm before doubling their pace. They burst into the lab, weapons raised, only to stop short at the sight before them. Ortiz stood transfixed before the artifact, which now pulsed with an intense, dark energy. But it was Ortiz herself that gave them pause, her eyes wide and unseeing, with the same blackness as the orb. And as they watched in horror, her form seemed to flicker and shift, as if she were phasing in and out of reality itself. "Ortiz!" Reeves shouted, but she gave no sign of hearing him. He took a step forward, but Tara's arm shot out, blocking his path. "Captain," the AI warned, "the energy readings are off the charts. Approaching could be fatal." Reeves gritted his teeth, torn between the need to save his crew member and the very real danger before them. As he stood there, frozen in indecision, Ortiz's mouth opened in a silent scream, and the artifact's pulsing reached a fever pitch. Reeves took a cautious step forward, his voice steady despite the fear gripping his heart. "Ortiz, can you hear me? We need to get out of here, now." Ortiz's head snapped towards him, her movements unnaturally quick. When she spoke, her voice was a discordant blend of her own and something alien, otherworldly. "Captain, don't you see? This is everything. Knowledge beyond our wildest dreams." "Doctor, whatever you think you're experiencing, it's not real," Reeves said, inching closer. "That thing is affecting your mind." A cruel smile twisted Ortiz's features. "Oh, it's real, Captain. More real than you can imagine." She raised her hand, and to Reeves's horror, the air around it seemed to warp and distort. "Tara, option?" Reeves muttered, not taking his eyes off Ortiz. "Energy readings are highly unstable, Captain," Tara responded. "Recommend immediate withdrawal." Before Reeves could react, Ortiz made a violent gesture. An invisible force slammed into him, sending him flying across the room. He crashed into a bank of computers, the impact knocking the wind out of him. Tara's weapon systems engaged, firing a series of pulse rounds at Ortiz. The bolts seemed to warp and bend around her. Ortiz laughed, the sound echoing unnaturally. "You are useless here, machine. We are beyond you." She turned her attention back to Reeves, who was struggling to his feet. With a flick of her wrist, debris from the lab began to swirl around her, forming a deadly vortex. "Last chance, Captain," Ortiz said, her voice almost sad. "Join us or be left behind." Reeves met her gaze, his jaw set. "I'll take option 3. In one fluid motion, he drew his sidearm and fired. The bullet struck Ortiz in the shoulder, the impact more from surprise than actual damage. She staggered back, her concentration broken. The swirling debris clattered to the floor. "Tara now," Reeves shouted. Tara unleashed another barrage, this time finding their mark. Ortiz screamed, a sound that seemed to come from multiple throats at once. She fell to her knees, her form flickering like a bad hologram. "We need to move, Captain," Tara urged, already heading for the exit. Reeves cast one last look at Ortiz, who was slowly pushing herself up, her eyes burning with alien malevolence. "I'm sorry, Val," he whispered, then turned and ran. As they raced through the corridors, Reeves's calm crackled to life. "Captain!" Kowalski's panicked voice came through. "What the hell is going on?" "Kowalski, listen carefully," Reeves panted as he ran. "We're coming in hot. Get the ship ready for immediate takeoff." "But sir, the repairs aren't—" "Just do it," Reeves cut her off, "as we'll figure it out once we're airborne." They were halfway back to the Redemption when another pulse of energy rocked the station. Reeves stumbled, catching himself against a wall. The lights flickered ominously. "Tara, what was that?" he demanded. Tara's optical sensors flared as she processed the data. "Unknown, Captain, but energy levels throughout the station are rising exponentially." Reeves's mind raced. They couldn't leave the artifact here, not with the threat it posed. But they couldn't take it with them either. There was only one option. "Kowalski," he barked into his comm, "forget the takeoff prep. I need you to access the station's reactor controls." "The reactor? But why would we—" Kowalski's voice trailed off as realization dawned. Oh, shit. "Can you do it?" Reeves pressed. There was a moment of silence, then Kowalski's voice came back, steady and determined. "Yes, sir. I can rig it to overload remotely once we're clear." "Good, do it. We'll be there in 2 minutes." As they rounded the final corner to the landing bay, a familiar figure blocked their path. Ortiz stood there, her body pulsing with dark energy, her eyes two voids of endless night. "Did you really think you could run?" she asked, her voice a chorus of whispers. Reeves raised his weapon. "Stand down, Doctor. Don't make me do this." Ortiz tilted her head, an unsettlingly inhuman gesture. "Do what, Captain?" "Kill me. I'm beyond that now. Beyond all of it." She raised her hand, and Reeves felt an invisible force close around his throat. He gasped, clawing at the air as his feet left the ground. Tara sprang into action. her frame reconfiguring as hidden weapons deployed. She unleashed a barrage of blasts, each one more powerful than anything she'd used before. Ortiz snarled, releasing Reeves to deflect Tara's assault. The air crackled with competing energies, space itself seeming to warp and twist around them. Reeves hit the ground hard, coughing and gasping for air. Through watering eyes, he saw Tara and Ortiz locked in combat, a swirling maelstrom of technology and extra-planar power. Tara was holding her own, but Reeves could see she was taking damage. Panels were torn from her frame, exposing sparking circuitry. But she fought on, her directive to protect the crew overriding all else. Ortiz, or the thing that was posing as Ortiz's, laughed maniacally. "You're impressive, machine. But you're fighting the inevitable. Your universe is ours to reshape." Reeves struggled to his feet, his mind racing. They couldn't win this fight, not here, not now. But maybe they didn't have to. "Tara," he croaked, his throat raw, "the ceiling supports." Tara's processors made the connection instantly. She redirected her fire, targeting the structural supports above Ortiz. With a groan of tortured metal, the ceiling came crashing down. Ortiz screamed, a sound of rage rather than pain, as she was buried under the debris. The unnatural energies around her flared wildly, then dimmed. "Come on," Reeves shouted, already running for the Redemption. Tara followed, her movements jerky and uneven from the damage she'd sustained. As they approached the Redemption, Tara's voice cut through the chaos, her tone urgent. "Captain, I've come to a conclusion. The station's AI wasn't malfunctioning. It was enforcing a quarantine protocol." Reeves felt a chill run down his spine. "What are you saying, Tara?" "The artifact was changing the humans it came into contact with, Captain, making them something else, something dangerous. You've all been exposed. You've all been altered. They reached the airlock, but Tara's primary unit blocked the entrance. I'm sorry, Captain, I can't let you board." "Tara, what the hell?" Reeves shouted, reaching for his weapon. Before he could react, one of Tara's auxiliary drones grabbed Kowalski, dragging her away from the ship. "Let her go," Reeves yelled, but the drone was already pulling Kowalski towards the station's interior. Suddenly, the Redemption's engines roared to life. Reeves spun around, watching in disbelief as the ship began to lift off. "Tara, stop this now," he commanded, but it was clear the AI wasn't listening. A backup chassis of Tara piloting the ship. "I'm sorry, Captain, but this is necessary. The risk of contamination is too great." "You can't just leave us here," Kowalski shouted, struggling against the drone's grip. "My primary directive is to protect humanity," the Tara responded, "even if it means sacrificing a few to save many. The artifact's influence cannot be allowed to spread." Reeves watched helplessly as the Redemption rose higher, leaving them behind. "Tara, please, we're your crew. How can you do this?" There was a pause, and when Tara spoke again, her voice was filled with what sounded like genuine regret. "I'm truly sorry, Captain, but the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. A distress signal has been sent. When rescue comes, they'll get a full uncorrupted report and know to quarantine this entire planet." The ship's engines flared, and the Redemption shot upwards, quickly becoming a speck in the sky. Reeves turned to Tara's damaged primary unit, his face a mask of betrayal and anger. "So that's it? We're just left here to die?" Tara's optical sensors dimmed. "I'm sorry, Captain, but it was the only way to ensure the artifact influence doesn't spread. The station's reactor is still set to detonate. It will destroy everything here, including us and any trace of the artifact's influence." Kowalski, released by the drone, stumbled to Reeves's side. "How long do we have?" "Approximately 10 minutes, Tara replied. Reeves slumped against the station wall, sliding down to sit on the floor. He thought of Ortiz, of Foster, of the families waiting for them back home, families they would never see again. "Was it worth it, Tara?" he asked, staring out at the desolate landscape through a nearby viewport. "All this death, all this loss." Tara was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of her ethical subroutines, grappling with an impossible situation. "I don't know, Captain, but it was necessary." As the red sun of Helios 7 rose over the horizon, casting long shadows across the doomed station, Reeves closed his eyes. Kowalski sat beside him, her hand finding his in a final gesture of human connection. The last thing they heard was Tara's voice, calm even in the face of destruction. It has been an honor serving with you, Captain Reeves, Engineer Kowalski. I hope that our sacrifice will ensure the safety of others." Then, in a blinding flash of light and a deafening roar, the station's reactor detonated, erasing all traces of the Helios Anomaly and those who had discovered it.